What's the deal with caped heroes and clowns? Here's a look at the brand new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batman vs. Spawn Platinum Edition Batman. Two dark heroes, cursed by tragedy, find their paths again crossing, but not by choice. What sinister foes at work, pitting the Dark Knight against the Hellspawn, from the shadows of Gotham City to New York City. I can't really see Bruce making a deal with Mal Bolger when he's already made a promise to his parents. Before we get a closer look, though, at the Batman vs. Spawn Platinum Edition Batman, let's take, though, the tape measure and see how tall the figure stands. From what I can see, he's using essentially the same body as the two-pack Batman that got paired along with Spawn. You'll see in a second. So they've given him a brand new head sculpt, and they decked him out in different colors. The figure, though, is going to stand about the same, though, as 7 inches in height, or about 18 centimeters tall. Wait, almost about the same size? Wouldn't they be the same size if they're using, after all, the same body? Yes and no. They're using the same body, yes, but the one that was in the two-pack actually has notably longer ears, a completely different head sculpt altogether. But because he has the longer ears, he's therefore a taller-looking Batman when you compare him along with this version of him. And of course, this was the Batman of that two-pack. Here's the Spawn that made up the rest of that two-pack. A good-looking Spawn, by the way. Let's just bring in a couple of other Batman as well. Here's what he looks like, obviously with the Nightfall Batman, and the recently looked at Silver Age Batman that happened to have the sporting fabric cape. If you were to bring out your accessory clipboard now, what? There's an accessory clipboard. Yeah, checked off on that clipboard. You'll be able to check off the figure does come included with a display stand. And he also comes included with his trading card. You don't have to make that noise while you're doing it, though. First, the figure does, yes, come included with the black display stand logo. Has the DC logo down below, and just not that far away, enough from yelling distance. So if somebody was like, hey, you shouldn't be mowing your lawn so early in the morning. I have neighbors that do that. You'd be able to yell, and I think they'd still be able to hear pretty well. I mean, you could just pretend like, what? I can't hear you. What? You shouldn't be cutting the grass so early in the morning? What? You're a jerk? A little off to the far corner of that, obviously, is the peg that plug-ins either one of Batman's boots. Keep this on the ready, even though I have like 500 of these over there, just because between the combination of loose ankles on this guy and a pretty hefty weight on the back of his body, they have some stability issues. The figure does also come included with a trading card. The trading card, I think, is from Batman vs. Spawn, and I think this is the one that Todd actually drew. Then the DC Comics one was ugly. I don't know who was responsible for drawing that. I know I could easily have just typed it up on the keyboard. Who was responsible for who drew the Spawn Batman cover? Somebody could just tell me down below. I do like the look of this Batman, though. You wouldn't be able to see Spawn. Spawn's kind of like off to the side here. You only basically see his knee. Some actually say that if you look at certain kneecaps in photos, it looks like a baby's face. I don't know if that necessarily looks like Spawn's got baby face knees. Certainly if he does, I don't think I'd be telling him that, though. The back of the card, though, for the most part, it's just given a generic read-up about the fact that the two characters are combining together in a comic run. The real name is Bruce Wayne, just in case you didn't know that. What you may have not known, though, is Batman and Spawn came out in 1996. What were you doing in 1996? Were you, for that matter, even born in 1996? Let me know down below. Let's move that off to the side. The figure does come included with accessories that he was already packed with when he came with that two-pack. So, like, for example, he comes with a very large, I would say abnormally large Batarang. I mean, it happens to be, though, the same Batarang that was already with that Batman before. Instead of being in black, does it come in black? No, this time it actually comes in like a navy blue. Same Batarang, it's pretty large, though. He already has the means, obviously, on the ends of his forearms. I don't want to say obviously. You may not already know that. On the ends of his forearms, though, he has gripping hands. So he can hold the Batarang if he wants. He doesn't have to hold necessarily the black Batarang. He does come with the blue one, so I'm going to display him with the blue one. Figure does also have swappable hands. So he has a closed fist hand, and you would think, though, that the other hand would then be another closed fist. No, it's not. You would fail the test right away. He does come with another gripping hand. I'm not really sure why he needs another gripping hand, technically, when he already has two of them on the ends of his forearms anyways, but yet he does come with another gripping hand. I guess if you wanted to, where's the Batarang? This big, giant mustache Batarang. Let's fit that into his hand. I guess this one holds it a little bit better. I mean, like, the other one is kind of more of a wider grip hand. Does it survive the blizzard test? Oh, okay, yes, it does survive the blizzard test. So let's move those all off to the side. Getting, though, a closer look, I don't know why I was doing that with kind of jazz hands. The figure does also, from the standpoint of his mold, it's pretty much going to be a carbon copy of this guy right here. I didn't mind this Batman. The one thing I really didn't care about, though, was his head sculpt. First of all, it looked like Batman was in anguish, or he stepped on like a Lego brick. Oh, if you ever stepped on a Lego brick, barefoot, just stepped right on it. That thing is just painful. But that's kind of like the head sculpt he's giving us right here. Or I guess the I don't know, the anguish on his face, the expression on his face. That's what I was trying to think of. Longer ears also as this one as well. I think this is kind of a little bit more like the DC version of Batman when he's, of the Batman versus, and again, I could probably just type that in. The Batman versus Spawn DC run had a much uglier looking Batman. I think Todd did a better job on Batman and Spawn for that matter. Obviously, he's going to do a better job on Spawn. But I like this one, but I didn't like it a lot. The thing I really like, though, about the new one is while using the same body, and it has little points there on the shoulders, the head sculpt's completely different, first of all, and it gives us a little bit more comic-accurate colors for his costume. The emblem is the exact same. Utility belt is the same. And what's interesting, though, about this Batman, before we kind of talk a little bit about his head sculpt, this one has really small trunks. Batman's packing, but I don't know if he's packing a whole lot. I'm speaking of his utility belt, you perverts. Head sculpt wise, though, it is a superior looking Batman. Would I say it's better than the Nightfall Batman? Maybe. The one thing that's interesting about this Batman is, first of all, he has short ears, and that the way that they actually drew the ears in the comics, they're more on an angle. They don't stick straight up. They're kind of more cut in the front. I do like that they've added also black on the front of his face. Now there's some blue that they've also added to the front of his nose and blue around the eyebrows. So those pop, but they don't pop that much, just because, again, the colors of the blue and the colors of the black are so close together in shades. I do like that he looks pretty ticked off, though. This Batman's not messing around. You got time for other people? Batman doesn't have time for you, though. Now, the one thing that's kind of interesting, though, about this figure is that, yeah, he is still retaining the exact same cape. So you've got the points on the sides. Those are rubbery plastic, by the way. Unfortunately, though, this figure didn't make the cut when it comes to a fabric cape. I don't really think that you could have used a fabric cape with this guy anyways, because unfortunately what would end up happening is you wouldn't be able to do this in fabric, and if you are familiar with like that, was the Norm Brayfogle Batman? We just recently had a look at it. I was just drawing a blank for a second. Brayfogle's Batman, they tried to do both, so they had like a plastic cape and then they had a fabric cape. I don't think it was successful on both parts. I think if you were trying to do this guy in a fabric cape, what would end up happening is this probably would all be still in plastic, and then they probably would have then put the fabric cape underneath the plastic part of his shoulders, and I think it would have really looked too much like an eyesore. If it means, though, I have to stick with the idea of using a plastic cape for this figure, I'm okay with it because the cape looks really good, though. The cape is exactly, though, the same as the Black Batman. Nothing different at all there. In fact, actually, if you even look at his gloves, for example, the spikes that stick out from the sides of his gloves are, in fact, the same gloves, same utility belt, same small packed trunks, and same boots, actually. If we just pick the figure up, I'll show you guys what the boots look like. So they're same, at least from that front. But I really like the head sculpt. I'm disappointed, though, because they are using this sort of style of body, that his head has to be attached to his neck, which means that when you are moving his neck, you're moving his head as well. They have to go together. I mean, when it comes to the standpoint of the articulation, while he still has the same levels of posability as most multiverse figures would have, one thing, unfortunately, he has to sacrifice is that the head is again attached to his neck. No harm, no foul. It's at least more of a seamless look. I would have really liked to see what this could have looked like with the head being a separate piece from the rest of his neck. With that being said, though, the articulation for Batman versus Spawn Batman, because the head, again, is going to be all one piece, the neck collectively does all the work, so the head's going to look down. It's going to look up, about that far. Head can also move back and forth, and yes, you can rotate it all the way around. As for his arms, the arms do hinge forward and back, but because he does have so much extra cape there across his shoulders, that's as far forward as you're going to be able to move his arms. The back of his arms, yeah, you're going to hit the back of his cape, so you're going to have a little more of a struggle there. The arms can still come out at a T pose, so they're not limited at all by that. He does have a swivel in his bicep. Double hinge on the elbows, of course, and the hands rotate all the way around. The upper torso is going to be on a ball joint. A little lower than that, he also does have an abdomen ball joint that swivels all the way around. Still has the utilizing of these soft trunks, but because the trunks are as small as they are, can we stop talking about Batman's package, please? Because he has small trunks like this. They don't look less like diapers on the figure, and they look actually pretty formed to the rest of his body. The legs ratchet out to a full splits. course, you can take the legs and move forward and move them back. Swivel at the top of the thigh, double hinge on the knee. No articulation here for the boot. Now here, again, is one issue I have with this figure, and the other Batman also had that as well. He's got an ankle pivot, but it's because it's a ratcheted joint, it has to be in certain points. Like, you can't get an in-between. It's either flat like this, or when you go to move it up, it's going to hit the next ratcheted joint. So I always kind of feel like I have to keep balancing this guy back and forth till eventually I get that sweet spot. Sweet spot. There's what Batman looks like. Unfortunately, though, his knees have to be kind of angled out. I'm going to be using, of course, a display stand. We jump over to the turntable. I love this look of this Batman. Does it beat, though, the Nightfall Batman? That's the big question, because up to this point, Nightfall Batman was the gold standard. This one, by comparison, though, is notably taller and bigger because, of course, he is using this version of Batman, which I didn't like before. I have to say, though, I like the mold a lot more now that they're being used for this figure here. Gets a lot of course, hand-me-downs. So, of course, the Batarang is the same Batarang that we already got packed with that 2-pack. And, yes, he is using the same hands as well. Is it an improvement? It is an improvement versus the one that we got before. Even though the dark grays work really well with the, of course, the gold that he has in his utility belt and the gold emblem, blue and gray for me all the way. I didn't mean to rhyme either. Unfortunately, though, because of the time this guy got released and by the nature of the way he's designed too, I don't think a fabric cape would have worked at all with him because, of course, the fabric cape would have to be a separate piece from his shoulders, and that wouldn't look right. No, that wouldn't look right at all. Greg Capullo. Wait, Greg Capullo drew Batman? Okay, now I feel bad maybe saying that in the review. Greg Capullo, though, is a really good Batman artist. Maybe I'm even thinking about the trade paperback cover that had Batman and Spawn on the front. Who's responsible for that? I guess I could be probably easily typing that on the keyboard. I'll leave it, though, for the keyboard warriors. You can let me know down below in the comments section. One thing, though, I do like about this Batman is, yes, while he does borrow over the body that was from the 2-pack with Spawn, I will say, though, that the Platinum Edition does it better. The gray and the black was working okay for the other Batman. I didn't like the head sculpt at all. This one has a considerably better head. And while, though, unfortunately, doesn't make the cut for fabric capes, I don't think, honestly, you could use a fabric cape with this style of cape. I mean, obviously, with the shoulders, they probably would have to keep that plastic. Then you'd have kind of the cape draping behind it like drapes. I mean, that wouldn't have worked. Even if you put a wire in that as well at all, some capes have to work as plastic. And I think this is a good example of a Batman that works better with a plastic cape than how he could have ever worked with a fabric one. Now, I'm looking at this one, and I still look over at the Nightfall Batman right now is giving me kind of puppy dog eyes. While I do think, though, I like the Nightfall Batman for being a smaller build of Batman, I like the blue better on this one. I might even just say I like the head sculpt a little bit more on this one. Could this one now be my favorite Batman? Maybe. I'm ducking right now in case somebody decides to throw something at me. He's with limitations, though. Still has some, unfortunately, loose ankles that got carried over. Unfortunately, he was one of the hand-me-downs from the 2-pack Batman, was he has somewhat loose ankles. Or maybe it's just the fact that because they're using ratcheted ankles, you never can quite get Batman balanced. But at least one thing good about this figure is, like with all the other things that we're getting from Todd and his team, we're getting at least a display stand. A better-looking Batman for Nightfall? The jury's not out for that, but I'm going to say, at least for right now, yes. Yes, it is. What do you guys think of this Batman? Let me know down below in the comments section. I actually ended up finding this one, too, on the Facebook selling group, and I got it for a decent price. I don't think he's going for too high either. Expect to pay anywhere from $30 to $40 for him, and I guess that's the average price. I think he's well worth it, though, if you're looking to get a decent-looking Batman. And, I mean, just that look alone that Batman's giving you, that's a Batman you don't want to mess with. Certainly, though, if you guys did enjoy this video, you can do it a solid and throw it a like. You guys want to certainly stick around for more as well. Hit that subscribe. Turn on that bell. The most important thing, of course, is the come back. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.